Welcome, everyone, to our call this morning. I'm Rabbi Stuart Weinblatt, the chair of the Zionist Rabbinic Coalition. This call is being recorded, and it'll be posted on our website. For those of you who don't know, the Zionist Rabbinic Coalition is a growing coalition of over 120 rabbis from all different movements and denominations who are committed to promoting the concepts of Jewish unity and peoplehood, and also to work to close the gap between Israel and the Jews of the diaspora, recognizing the important role that rabbis play in all of this. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that. As you can see, to either learn more about the Zionist Rabbinic Coalition and or to join, please do feel free to go to our website, which is zionistrabbis.org. I just want to mention that an upcoming program that we have the last week of July will be a high holiday sermon seminar with Rabbi Avi Weiss and also Yossi Klein Halevi. That is being scheduled as we speak, and so please check your emails and inboxes for information about that call with Avi Weiss and with Yossi Klein Halevi. Secondly, also, you'll be receiving an email in regard to the movie Upheaval, a new biography of Menachem Begin, which is going to be made available to members of the Zionist Rabbinic Coalition for you to be able to show in your congregations. It's received rave reviews, and so we're happy to be able to make that available to individuals who like to share it with their synagogues. So with that, I want to go straight to our opportunity to hear now from Elisha Wiesel. By way of introduction, a number of us have hopefully heard about this rally, which is being planned for next Sunday in record time in many respects here in Washington, D.C. And the thing I want to say before I introduce Elisha is, number one, rabbis play a key role. In fact, Rabbi Avi Weiss, in his book about Jewish spiritual activism, talks about the importance of the rabbinic community getting behind and supporting the last massive rally in Washington, D.C. for Soviet Jewry, when 250,000 people came. And he said, without rabbis and rabbinic leadership and support, it never would have happened. So keeping that in mind, we know the importance of rabbis in terms of supporting and bringing out the troops. And that's part of what today's call is all about. Elisha Wiesel, before I introduce him, I just want to warn everybody, you're talking to someone who probably has only slept about 4 hours in the last 3 weeks. Elisha has been working tirelessly on this particular event, and as a result of his passion, his guidance, his leadership, and his vision, he's been able to broaden the coalition of those individuals who are part of this. He's going to talk to us about what the purpose of the rally is, how you can be supportive, why we're doing it, and so on. The last thing I want to say, of course, many of us know who Elisha is because we know that he is the son of Eli Wiesel. But in a commentary by Sivan Rahav Meir on this week's Torah portion, in which she comments about God telling Moses to appoint Joshua as his successor, she makes a comment and she says, if your father is a rabbi, and you might think that as a result, if you see a dynasty of great rabbis, she says, and leading Torah scholars, then don't just assume that one is there because of one's parents' position, but rather that each one studied hard and achieved what he did in his own right. And so that's true of Elisha, who is truly a leader for our time of the American Jewish community, and has really worked so vigorously on this event. With that, Elisha, it's all yours.
Thank you so much for that incredibly warm and generous introduction, Rabbi Stewart. I must say that one of the upsides to this whole process has been getting to befriend you and getting to have coffee the other day in the city. It was really nice to see you face to face. So I want to explain to everybody why it is that I'm doing this. I have not been involved in Jewish communal activism up until this time. I spent 25 years on Wall Street. I did other nonprofit things. I speak at shuls. I started speaking at shuls really from time to time after my father passed 5 years ago to this day on the secular calendar. I started speaking on shuls because as my father passed, I had a bit of a return to Yiddishkeit. I had been very distant from Judaism. I went to Ramaz in New York. I had a bad experience, not because anybody there did anything wrong, but just because being my father's son was a big burden, because I resented that burden, because I didn't feel like I wanted to live up to the expectations that everybody had of me as Eli Wiesel's son. And I was a pretty miserable kid, and I made other people miserable. And to make a long story short, I did everything I could to run as far away from Yiddishkeit as I could for quite some time. As I got older, as I had my own children, as I listened to my father's guidance, and my father really only gave me two major guideposts in the course of our relationship. And the first guidepost was he insisted that I marry Jewish. He didn't care if it was someone who converted in, as long as it was kahalacha. He didn't care if it was Ashkenazi, Mizrahi, Sephardi. He couldn't really care at all, but he was insistent that his grandchildren be Jewish. And that was the only real line I had with him. And then the second line that I had with him is he told me, as he was already quite sick, he expected me to say Kaddish for him every day. The process of saying Kaddish for him every day was something that I realized later. It was not a last gift I was giving him. It was really a gift he was giving me. It reintroduced me into the Jewish community, and it gave me a role to play. I started discovering that I, like my father did before me, I had a Jewish passport into every Jewish community in the world, and that once there, I had a role to play in the proceedings. And I know that I'm not talking about the rally, but I think it's very important you understand that the rally didn't come out of nothing. It's been a real process for me over the last few years. As my son became bar mitzvah with my father's passing, how seriously I took that. I hadn't worn tefillin in 30 years. I started recently wearing tefillin every day with my son before he goes to school. So I have had a real journey in terms of my Judaism. But in terms of my Israel activism and my activism for the Jewish people, I will say the following. When the bombs were falling on Israel just 2 short months ago, I was so upset, and I was demanding of Jewish organizations that we do something, that we get together, that we show Jewish solidarity with our brothers and sisters in Israel, and that we stand up for ourselves in a world where we were starting to see anti-Semitic attacks occurring here. And there were a lot of good reasons at the time why it didn't make sense. There was concern of COVID, there was concern of violence, there was concern, frankly, that were the communities too divided? Can we really pull together? What if we fail? What if we try and we don't succeed while our enemies think that we're now weak and vulnerable? And all of those I don't want to take away. They're all real concerns. But I got frustrated enough that I made a neder, which is always a mistake. You're always supposed to go b'li neder. But I made a neder to myself that the first group to raise their hand and say that they would get a permit in the DC area and that they would stage a rally on behalf of the Jewish people, not only would I come volunteer to speak, I would fund it, I would come in and amplify it, I would try to make it better. And that's what happened. And I said to myself, I'm going to do that no matter if the conditions seem like the worst possible thing, because that's going to be a sign that it's time to do something. Everybody's saying it's too difficult to do a rally in DC and invite the other cities, but I'm going to see that opportunity and I'm going to take it. When Alliance for Israel, led by Melissa Landa, put their hand up on Facebook and said that they'd been working on a rally for a few weeks, I reached out to her and I said, I'd like to help. And we went to David Harris, and he was the first in from AJC, and then Jonathan Greenblatt shortly behind from ADL, and now we had 2 national sponsors. And now we've begun the process of reaching out to many more organizations. And for those of you who have had the chance to see our latest flyer, it's starting to work. This message of we can make room as a big tent for center and left as well as right, and we can do it without compromising on the message that we, the Jewish people, have the right to live in peace and security, both in the United States and in Israel. We are uncompromising on that message, and we are uncompromising about our intent to bring in the biggest tent possible of Jewish organizations and Jewish individuals. And I will tell you, it is starting to work. Yesterday, we had an amazing day. In the span of 6 hours, the OU, the Rabbinic Assembly, USCJ, URJ, and CCAR all signed on as Topline sponsors and started marketing the event in their newsletters in one day. We've reached out to Hadassah, B'nai B'rith, all of these Topline organizations are coming on. And we are now getting what I would call mainstream support for a Jewish solidarity rally that includes Israel as part of its platform, which was critical to me. And if you think about how difficult that is to do, I will tell you, I haven't slept much, as Rabbi Stewart said. The art of keeping this coalition together is a very delicate art. There is so much drama on whose logo goes where and who goes above the other and who's in small print, who's in big print. We have a lot of, people feel they have a lot at stake. Every group that is doing work here feels that they have reputation at stake. And I want to say something. I've tread on toes and I've made mistakes, but I have only deepened my appreciation for all of these different groups who are doing work in the community. Whether we're talking, and this is a very important statement that's there on, I want you to see that front and center on our website. We welcome all Zionist Jewish organizations. Organizations who are to the point that they're pushing one-state solutions where we lose our Jewish character. They're not really, that's not the tent we're trying to build. We're not looking for the one-staters. We're looking for people who are Zionists and who believe we have a right to exist in peace and security. So we are building this thing. We have about 10 to 15 buses currently coming from New York. We know there are buses coming from Baltimore. We have buses starting to be built in Philadelphia, North Carolina. Even Boston is starting to put something together, particularly in light of what happened yesterday with the attack there. So this is real. People are coming from out of town to come to DC for this. And we've already had to shift our location to make sure we could accommodate the increasing size. Our speaker list is going to grow. You're going to see representation from both sides of the aisle, and you're going to see a wide variety of denominational representation. We are not having any Jewish organizational speakers. We made a commitment when we started telling speakers we had to renege on commitments. The only way we could do it with a straight face was to say that this is just not the event where every organization is going to get and hawk their wares. It's not happening. This is going to be real content from victims, content from students and faculty who are experiencing anti-Semitism on campus. You're going to hear from some big names that have things to offer, like Alma Hernandez, who just passed this week Arizona's first Holocaust education bill. You're going to hear from real allies of the community as well. So that's what we're building. That's the ethos behind it. I see that there's a question on timing. I agree that the vacation schedule is terrible. July 11th was one of the biggest things that I saw. You'll see on the website, our response to that is that anti-Semitism isn't taking a vacation, so neither can we. At this point, we're into this rally. God willing, I hope that this is the beginning of something, not the end of something. This rally is just going to show us that we can still bring the community together because it hasn't happened for a long time. And we can bring them together, and if we can do it for this event, we can do it for others, and I hope it grows from this perspective. That's the opening. I'd love to hear questions either from you, Rabbi Stewart, or from anybody on the call, and we should discuss them directly.
Elisha, I hope everyone recognizes that Elisha's passion and vision is truly part of what is helping to make this rally the kind of thing that Jewish organizations are getting involved in, and rabbinic leadership is so very important. So with that, we'll open up for questions and any comments we have. I see Gordon Yaffe, and let's just keep the questions short because I wanted to keep our call short today. So, but please, first we'll go to Gordon. And then Ted Flat. Gordon, if you can, and then Ariane, if you could please unmute the individual that I call their names. Thank you, Gordon, you're on.
Okay, thank you, Stuart, and thank you, Elisha. I want to make a statement very quickly. I want to tell you that as soon as I found out about this, I'm getting a totally vaccinated bus from Long Island. And I've been in touch with Julie Hazan. Great. And we are doing a virtual gathering with capacity for over 500 for those who can't come to Washington. And I kol hakavod and thank you. I just had some questions, and I've been asking Stuart, and we're putting out our bulletin today, and I said sponsors as of now, and there are a couple of things that are missing from the sponsors. I know you're working around the clock, but I'm wondering about the Jewish Dems because the Jewish Republicans are on there. I'm wondering about, I see one suburban synagogue. I don't know where the synagogues are from DC, Virginia, and Maryland, and the rabbinic, the Washington Board of Rabbis, etc. I talked to Rabbi Potasnik, and we've been working together. I see he's on, and I think that a rally in Washington needs the Maryland, Washington, Bethesda community. I grew up in that community.
Okay, Gordon, let's.
I'm done. Thank you.
My only response to that is please help. Please help. Just make the calls. I'm from New York. I don't know my way around DC, and for all of those who are sitting there amused by my mistakes, I'm making mistakes. I don't know. I'm sure I've not asked people the right way. I'm sure that I don't know how to do it. but help me get to rabbis and shuls. The way I see it, we have about 5 or 6 hours, well, whatever, we have until Shabbat comes to get to the rabbis in those shuls, to spend 15, 20 minutes talking to them, explaining to them how important this is. Yes, there are a gazillion problems. It's too, I'll just tell you, like when this thing started, it was like Israel was too hot. Okay, but now nothing's happening. Why do it now? It's the summer. Like we'll get to the fall, and then it's going to be the Chagim. And I hope there's a rally in the Chagim. But I'm also worried that the planners will look and say, "Oh, too many Chagim. Let's do it in October." And then I cannot live a single additional minute with how broken our community is. We're broken, and I can't live with it anymore. And I don't know how to get that message to the right rabbis in Washington. So if you have contacts there and you want to introduce me, I'm doing my best. People are sending me contacts, and I'm doing my best to field them all on my own. But what I really need is ambassadors who have the same passion, so that I don't have to be in every call.
I'll make some calls.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Very nice to meet you, Rabbi Gordon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, I'm going to go to Ted Flaum, and then after that, I saw Ed Farber. So either raise your hand or send me a private chat. Ted, you're on.
Well, thank you. And I'm humbled and amazed at what Elisha has done. So I was invited to attend this from my local rabbi who said, we have to do this. And he sent an email out to a number of people. How do we mobilize in especially such a short period of time? I mean, by the time everything's put into place, it's Shabbos.
Yep.
People are away for the July 4th weekend. I'm concerned about the timing. Concerned how we get the Jews from the Midwest, because I already looked at flights are $500 round trip.
Yeah, it's high.
It's too far away for a bus.
Yeah.
And so how do we do this in a coordinated way? Because my concern is when they compare this to the rally in '87, where we had 500,000 Jews, I think, was it 250,000, 500,000? They're going to compare this rally to that rally. And if we don't
let them, but I would say the following: we're not going to get 250,000. We're not even going to get the 100,000 we had in 2002. We may not get 10,000. We may not get 5,000. I think it's time for us to stop being scared of the numbers and realize that currently we're hitting about 0. So it's time to get something on the board, and this is the beginning of something. This is not the end of something. Do you think that the Black Lives Matter, when they had their first, rally or response to the violence, and they only got whatever it was, a few hundred, did they sit there and stop and say, okay, that's it, we only got no, they built. These things grow. Jewish activism has taken a big blow from the divisiveness in our community. A lot of what we experienced from Obama to Trump, whether it was divisiveness over the Iran deal or everything that came later, we've become a very deeply divided community, and Jewish activism has taken a hit. This is going to be the beginning, I hope, of Jewish activism again. And I think that people who care a lot about this will come and show up, and our numbers may not be huge, and people may look at us and say, ha, that's small, but they will look back months or years afterwards and say that was the beginning of something. So I am not judging this rally based on how many people show up. I'm going to judge this rally based on the quality of the message that we got out, on the quality of the coalition and the breadth of the coalition that we built, and then my thinking is that that is something that we can use going forward. So I want to be very clear. I'm not in this as a size game. I'm not comparing, I'm not playing that game. That's not how I view it.
But, and I appreciate that, but I also think we might lose an opportunity with more timing and better organization to have a rally that would have twice as many people than we might get because it's such a short period of time and really focus on one area of the country.
Yeah, I think we should aim for 10 times the size. I don't want twice the size. I think we should aim to get 2,500 this time, if that's what we can get, and then we should get 25,000 next time. I hear everything you're saying. We're not canceling the rally at this point. We're not postponing it. We're not rescheduling it. I'm just all in, and I think that the work that we have done along the way, the building of this coalition, the creation of a flyer that has all the religious denominations, that's going to, by the end of the day, I believe, have both RJC and JDCA, the creation of that flyer that has ADL, AJC, and yet under the line still has ZOA, Stand With Us, all these other groups. That work itself is the hard work. I believe that that is the asset that we are building, demonstrating that by being sensitive and respectful to everyone's considerations, we can pull this together, and that is the work. And I believe it is something that can last if we all treat it with care.
Let's go to Ed Farber. after that.
Thanks. Yeah, I just want to build on what you said. That I like the idea. This is just beginning, because obviously from the deep south, from Miami, which sent 2 plane loads and back for the Russian rally. That's not going to happen. We have our own service here. Plus, many of our people are away on vacation. Right, I know, and obviously we're preoccupied with that. But I know that if this is the first one, but we build for a really massive one sometime between the holidays and the winter, don't do winter, that doesn't work, that we would be able to organize a very, very large group to come. So in light of that, I thought there were 2 things that might help make this one successful. First would be the idea that people could Zoom in, so they could get excited about it and not hear about it in the news media, which, by the way, in some news media won't even give it decent coverage. We know that. Plus, people are not so much turned into news right now because of the vacation. So if it was possible for rabbis to send out, say, this rally is taking place, you can Zoom in and be there.
I would encourage you, if you are willing to imagine with me that this is the beginning of something, then I would ask that you consider sending a few seeds to plant for the people that the Miami community will be able to meet, who are thinking big, who are not giving up, who are feeling that the time for collective Jewish activism is needed now more than ever. Sending some of those seeds, that you plant, some of the younger leaders maybe who are looking for something new to build themselves on as they develop their own careers in Jewish communal leadership. I would ask you to think about sending some of them, send some seeds.
That's a great point.
I will definitely send it out, and some people will make the trip. The other thing I was wondering, although this may be dated, but if some major organizations could place full-page ads in key newspapers in support of the rally, so that people see this rally and we stand with this rally, even if they can't get there. That used to be a big deal. I don't know if that's a big deal anymore, but full-page ads, I remember the full-page ads for the Soviet Jewry rally.
I just, it's funny that you mentioned that. I just sent an email to our PR team asking them what our print media strategy is. So you and I are thinking along the same way.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
So in regard to that first question then about the possibility of live streaming, the point is there will be, but let's not publicize it at this time. And the second point Elisha's making, which is such a strong one, is if you can't get a whole group together, maybe rabbis from our discretionary funds, you can help to get somebody there, maybe even some young people. Look at how many people on this call were personally affected and motivated and inspired by whether it was the rally in Washington for Soviet Jewry, or even the '67 war, or any of the other times, the one in 2002 when there was on Gaza. This is a chance to really have ripple effects on the beyond in the Jewish community. Second question, Elisha, we're getting a couple of comments in the chat room, and that is in regard to local, simultaneous rallies. Something I understand in the New York area, they're in Long Island, they're looking to do something or whatever, and perhaps elsewhere, especially those that are further away. Any comment on that, Elisha?
Look, I think we view this as being DC based. I feel like we have a message for Congress and for the Jewish people. We're not going to discourage if there are groups that can't make it and they want to do something local. Look, I would never discourage someone from engaging in Jewish activism as long as you do it respectfully and inclusively and thoughtfully. So I'm never going to say no to that.
Thank you. Elisha, if you would just then speak a little bit to, I don't know how to put this, but I'll just be very frank. And there are colleagues from whom, and people I've heard, that they were hesitant because of the fact it seemed as if it was to the right. You did allude to that. Although I was speaking with somebody earlier who said they were concerned because it seemed as if it was so much to the left.
See, that's how you know I got it right.
So can you just, share with us what kind of the importance and the need for that to be broad-based, which you alluded to before, but if you just want to expand on that.
We've got to be broad-based. We can't build a coalition just from one side, and we need both sides. And there's so much latent energy in the center and left. It's funny, URJ came in, but when I was pleading with Rick Jacobs and I was really making my case, I went and I said to him, think about your constituency. Can you do, even if you don't sponsor, can you show up and do something like we've arranged with Chabad? Chabad doesn't like to put their name on things. They don't want to be seen as political activists. They need to be friendly with many different administrations, et cetera, et cetera. And, but what I told Rabbi Shem Tov and others is I said, but come put tefillin on all these arms. You're going to have so many arms to put tefillin on. Boost our numbers by doing that. It's a chance to do mitzvahs. And what I pitched URJ is I said, if you guys don't end up sponsoring, thank God they did, I said, come bring water. It's going to be a hot day. Think about what an important moment it's turned into on the left, this concept of bringing water to voters standing in line, how that's become part of an ethos on the left of freedom of assembly and supporting freedom of assembly. If you can't come put your name on it, okay, don't put your name on it, but come and hand out bottles of water to Jews standing up for themselves with the same passion you would hand out bottles of water to people from underprivileged communities standing in line to vote in places where it's difficult for them to vote.
Thank you. Beautiful, beautiful. Elisha, second question is,
and then I have to, unfortunately, this is a half-hour call, right? I do
right,
have to,
right. We're gonna end in about 2 minutes. So I'll put both.
And by the way, we can't do music proper because it's the second day of the 9 days. Not only within the 3 weeks, we're in the 9 days.
Right.
I'm sorry. Just last. This is gonna be the last question, guys, and then I just want to say before I answer it, thank you all of you for making and taking this half hour to hear me. Some of you might be convinced enough by what I'm saying to discuss it with your shuls and with other rabbis. Some might not. I hold nothing against you. I hope that our paths cross, and I know that you are all thoughtful leaders of your community from everything I've heard from Rabbi Stewart. So I just want to say thank you for spending the time with me this morning.
Thank you. That was basically going to be my last question, which is, what is your specific ask of rabbis, both those on the call and those who, are not in the area? And actually, if I'm going to ask the Washington area rabbis, stay on for a moment or two, and we'll talk about how we can reach some of our colleagues. But Elisha, last word, what are you asking for rabbis?
I think we have however long it is until now in Shabbat to reach rabbis in the New York, in the non-DC areas. If buses are going to be chartered, rabbis have to be talking about it in shul. And this is true actually in Washington too. If this is going to happen and this is going to be significant and not be a very poor showing, rabbis need to be mentioning it in their sermons tomorrow on Shabbat to their communities. And if there are rabbis who aren't on this call that need to hear it, please help me reach them. We can supply you with all the info on how it works, but this is kind of the last window, especially for the longer distance travelers, to hop on, to get on the bus, if you will, and join us. So again, I appreciate your time. Thank all of you for what you do for Am Yisrael and for communities. And Rabbi Stewart, a special thank you to you for enabling us to have this time together.
Elisha, your leadership is unbelievable. We thank you. We know you've got a million other calls to make.
Okay. Be well, everyone. Okay.
I'm
I'm just going to end by saying Shabbat Shalom, good Shabbos, good Shabbos.
Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. Toda Rabah.